Hello, welcome to this video on corporate social responsibility. So in this video, we're going to look at what is meant by CSR and look at the big kind of dilemma that we're looking at here, which is between profit-based activities and other objectives that a business might have. So this is going to get us quite deep into, or kicking off, get quite deep into thinking, what is the purpose of a business? I'm going to think about it from an ethics point of view. What is right and what is wrong? So ethics concerns actions which can be assessed as right or wrong by reference to moral principles. So not if it's legal or illegal, but do you think it was right or wrong? And obviously businesses who get most of the stuff done in society have a crucial part to play in this. Do you think the actions of businesses can be assessed as being right or wrong, even if they're not breaking the law? So areas we might think about here are things like where the business chooses to locate. If they choose to locate in an area where workers' rights are less strict, is that wrong? Or is that just a cost-saving measure? We might think about in terms of mergers, takeovers, and retrenchment. So for example, if a business takes over another business and that means that they're able to control more supplies and as a result charge higher prices, that's good business sense, isn't it? Or actually would controlling those suppliers be wrong? What about issues with corruption? So for example, if a business was to operate in a country that's considered quite corrupt, and the way you get things done there is you kind of pay out little bribes, or you maybe take officials out for nice dinners, and that's just the way business is that right or is that wrong? Working with suppliers, do we have a responsibility to make sure that everything is ethically sourced? Should food manufacturers be making sure that their chickens and cows are treated fairly? Or actually, does it not really matter? That's that business's responsibility and not ours. So this presents a lot of issues for businesses to consider. And there can often be a lot of trade-offs with profit in these examples. So for example, the fair treatment of suppliers, paying fair trade prices might reduce our profits. Paying taxes in the UK or paying taxes in a particular country, whereas actually that might reduce our profits, where we could maybe do some offshore tax avoidance schemes that would increase our profits. Not exploiting workers might mean our profits, we don't have to pay them more, and so our profits are lower. Where we put things in the actual physical stores, the classic example being sweets by the checkout. If we put sweets by the checkout, might make us more profit, but actually is that a responsible thing to do? Is it the right thing? Is it the ethical thing to do? Paying above the minimum living wage, paying above the minimum wage would reduce our profits. Is it right or wrong? Ethically sourced ingredients. So a lot of these things may be more expensive. It's going to reduce our profits. So what should we do as a business? And the way businesses deal with this, or the umbrella term we use for this, is corporate social responsibility. So it's the extent to which a business addresses the concerns and obligations to its wider stakeholders. So again, this brings back to stakeholders, people like government and suppliers and employees, versus the concerns about profit maximization and shareholders. Another way of flipping it around is saying, looking at the actions a business takes over and above the minimum required by law in addressing societal needs and wants. So corporate social responsibility that a business might carry out, or CSR, can be called many different things. Corporate citizenship, sustainable business, corporate responsibility, social responsibility, even corporate sustainability. But really two quick questions here is, what is the purpose of a business? Is it to make profit for the owner who's taken a risk to start it? Or is it have an obligation to its stakeholders, i.e. what contribution should businesses be making to society? Or is that the responsibility of us, people, governments? These are the questions really we're trying to think about as to whether businesses should consider how seriously they take corporate social responsibility. So another way of looking at this is that saying that society and business are kind of independent. Society needs businesses. Think about what your parents do or your friends and family. 99% of them will work in businesses. and that provides them with employment and wages. Businesses provide us with iPhones and investment and innovation. They provide government with taxes to fund public services that might not otherwise be funded. But business also needs society. Without society, with money in their pockets, there is no demand for our products as a business people. Business provides roads and infrastructure, hospitals that treat our staff when they're ill and help us deliver our products. Government help protect our ideas and prevent us from crime and our ideas being stolen. So it's a two-way thing. We have to recognize that they're interdependent, and I guess the question is, where does the balance lie between the two? We can certainly argue that businesses help society. There's a definite role here for businesses to help society through protecting the environment, or education as a service, protecting consumers, providing financial security. And so we have to think about these questions, and we have to recognize that all business organizations behave in a socially responsible manner. And some argue it's not the job of businesses to be concerned about social issues and problems, that's the job of people and governments. And there tend to be two schools of thought on this. There's a free market view that the main job of business is to create wealth for shareholders, to reward those who've taken the risk to set them up. And there's another view at the other end of the spectrum, which is the corporate social responsibility view, that businesses should be concerned with social issues, and that is their moral obligation. So what does a corporate social responsibility, or sometimes known as a stakeholder approach, entail? Well, it starts with the premise that businesses do not have an unquestioned right to operate in society. And those managing businesses should recognize they depend on society for an educated workforce, for infrastructure, for a legal framework. And therefore there is a social contract, not necessarily a contract that's written down, but there's an implied social contract here between businesses and society involving mutual obligations that society and business recognize that they have to each other. And these businesses on the right here have all in the past been accused of not taking corporate social responsibility very seriously. And it might be a little nice research task if you're not aware of the issues surrounding these businesses to pause the video, do a quick little Google search and see whether you would think that how they behaved is right or wrong. Do you think they've adopted enough corporate social responsibility in their approaches to business? So what are the arguments for corporate social responsibility? Well, people say it's the right thing to do. Even if legally you can get away with something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but behaving in a corporate socially responsible way is the right thing to do. It can also have a sort of benefit as well in terms of your image and your reputation. Sometimes it's necessary to avoid in order to have the government come around to you later and say, well, actually, you haven't been taking care of the environment, so we're going to have to regulate you now. Had you been doing it before, in the first place, you might have avoided these regulations. Socially responsible actions can be profitable in the long term in particular, and an improved social environment will benefit the business. So paying your workers fairly, if everyone does that as a business, well, then actually you're creating customers in the future, or kind of creating customers for other businesses in the business community. It may help attract investors, and it can increase employee motivation if they feel they're part of an organization that takes the social contract seriously. It can also help to correct some of the social problems that are caused by business. But there are many skeptics about corporate social responsibility, and every business will claim that they do corporate social responsibility and take it seriously. But some people would argue that actually it's just a marketing tool. They have to do this to be seen to care as a business in order to not lose customers. A more blunt way of doing this would be looking at the free market view. For example, here a quote by the economist Milton Friedman. And the only responsibility of a business towards society is the maximization of profits to the shareholders within the legal and the ethical custom of the country. So we shouldn't be too concerned about the social implications of a business or giving back to society. Business is there to make profits for the owners. They're the ones who've set it up and taken the risk. So what would be the case against a corporate social responsibility approach to decision making? Well, it might be that the responsibility of business is really to create wealth for shareholders. The efficient use of resources will be reduced if businesses are restricted in how they act by having to consider other implications. There's a compelling argument here that businesses can't really decide what is in society's interest. Society will indicate their wishes through where they spend their money. So if I don't like the fact that you're an oil company producing the environment, I won't buy your petrol car. I won't buy petrol cars. I'll buy an electric car. As a consumer, I can decide through how I spend my money what sort of business I want to operate in society. Extra costs will be incurred in making sure that we behave in a societally responsible way. And it also stifles innovation. If I'm not going to make much profit out of it, why should I be bothered to come up with an idea? Where's the incentive for me to innovate and create a cool idea? So in this video, we've looked at the term corporate social responsibility. We've looked at how it can lead to conflicts between a profit-based, a free market approach, and the other objectives that stakeholders might have. And we've introduced the wider question of whether businesses should consider a corporate social responsibility when making strategic decisions. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.